People are really, really smart. They're a lot smarter than when we were kind of getting into the industry, just because of the tools that are available to them. There's a lot of do-it-yourself capability with, some of the social media channels. People are very, very smart. Throw them in the deep end sooner.
Yeah.
Keep them around.
Welcome to the Elevating Leaders series, where we go beyond the headlines and straight to the people who are redefining insurtech and business transformation. We've caught up with the visionaries and the pioneers that are currently driving the industry forward, bringing you exclusive insights, strategies, and stories you won't hear anywhere else. If you're ready to go deeper, this is your front row seat to the future of insurance. I'm Miguel Edwards, and this is 5 Minutes.
Jackie, well, thank you so much for joining us here today on another episode of 5 Minutes. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy ITC schedule to be here.
Very happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Fantastic. Well, here's how I like to start every conversation, because I met my first person yesterday, actually, who actually planned to be in the insurance industry.
Wow.
As a career, as my first person.
Wow.
So I'd love to ask you, how did you get into this industry? What was your journey? What paved the road for you?
Sure, absolutely. Unplanned.
Yeah.
In that generation where, before risk management schools really took off, it wasn't really around. Having said that, fast forwarded so quickly, it was just through the network, which really is what this industry is about anyway. Sure. So it was. I knew someone who said, I think you would be really good in this industry, or you would really like it.
Yeah.
So it was. It happened that way, and so I started out with Alexander & Alexander, acquired by Aon.
Yep.
It's fun. I've been in every part of the value chain in the distribution. So then moved over to Chubb, and I was with Chubb for several years, and then ultimately my current employer, Insurance House, which is a wholesale broker, Southeast regional wholesale broker and MGA.
Got it.
And we also own an insurance carrier, so still have my leg in that a little bit.
Makes sense.
And now in technology. So co-founded a firm called Cogitate Technology Solutions with my partner, Arvind Kaushal. He and I met at Emory University, and he came to work for Insurance House, and ultimately we decided to give it a try.
Jackie, how do you balance all of that? I mean, you co-founded, you run a technology organization, you've got an MGA which must be incredibly busy, especially given everything that's going on.
Sure.
What's the secret to managing all of that? Because you look incredibly well kept on. My eyes, I would have bags under my eyes dying. How would this work? How does this work for you?
Well, I think, first and foremost, it's a passion. The insurance, and I'm very geeky about the industry. And so my background was the insurance side before it became technology. And so it's just really the passion for what can happen in this industry. I've seen it for, well over 30 years, and I've watched it transform from telexes to AI. And so from that journey, where we actually get to be a part of it and help make it happen, that's the excitement, and it's just passion. I've never gotten bored with this industry. No day is ever the same. And, just to be able to see what it can become, if you can take the insurance transaction and that transaction, and then you learn something about technology, it's amazing to see what it ultimately can become.
Yeah, I love that. There's I don't remember the book Good to Great, Jim Collins says. It's an oldie, right? There was this concept in there you just reminded me of called the hedgehog principle, where it's like the only things that you should do have to follow 3 tests. You have to be able to make money at it. So it's got to be economic. You've got to be really good at it. You've got to have expertise, and you've got to be passionate about it.
Sure.
And a lot of folks that I talk to, they're missing that passion piece, and that's the piece you just hit on, because that's really the key to doing something well, right?
Yeah, it's really waking up every day to see how much you can make it better, because there's so much room.
Yeah.
That's the fun part about it.
Yep.
So it's like solving a puzzle. It's not a 1,000-piece puzzle. It's a 10,000-piece puzzle, and that's when you get really good, is when you hit the 10,000 piece.
That's exactly right. So Jackie, you mentioned that you run an MGA. And when we think about all of the action that's going on in the insurance industry, it really seems like the MGAs are stealing the show.
For sure.
So talk a little bit about that value proposition, and where is Insurance House kind of innovating in that space? Sure.
Well, our roots are E&S, and our founders founded the firm, John Jinks Jr., Mitch Quinn Jr. They founded the firm in 1964. So we're actually turning 60 at the end of this year. So we have a big celebration going on a little bit later for us, but pretty fun to be able to be a part of that throughout, for really, I'm coming up on my 29th year with Insurance House, so I've been a big part of that for a long time. So just with those roots, and then I became very involved in the E&S industry from a leadership perspective. Was a board member for NAPSLO before we joined forces with AAMGA and to ultimately become WSIA. So I've been in it for a very long time. When I got in it, it was about a $3 billion industry, and last year it just crested 115 billion.
That's right.
So if you look at the AM Best special report, so I just look at what the opportunities were and what E&S was as an intermediary and what it's become. It used to be that we were, and we still are, we still provide an incredible mechanism for, for transitioning, either unique risk or high risk or, something that needs a lot of limits to it, to really leading the industry on innovation.
Yeah.
And intermediaries, we're some of the first people to see it. And so, because we're the ones who we're getting the submissions in from retail brokers, and everybody's always forming new businesses. So we sort of have become, sort of that market of innovators. Now, our industry, just because of where we've been in the value chain, behind the retail agent, further into the value chain, we haven't really been had a perceived need to be as innovative on technology and on automation and on data. And so that is changing so quickly and so rapidly, just because you can just look at this place and see all the exhibitors in the hall, and E&S and specialty is getting much more of a focus. And so now people are really starting to understand, wow, what do we need to do here? We're used to our normal ecosystems, which really, digital hasn't been a part of that. And everybody's been really now with velocity looking at what do we have to do there? What do we have to do with data? We capture more data than most of the carriers do because they're catching it individually. We're catching it as aggregators. So now the advantage and the opportunity for us to take advantage of that with technology is front and center.
Let me ask you a question about that, because it fascinates me, the growth in E&S that you just cited. And is it the advancements in technology and I guess our use of data that is driving that growth, or is it something more? Is it a macro dynamic in the risk landscape? All of the above. So talk a little bit about what you think is driving that E&S growth.
I'd say technology is secondary to that. Okay. It's definitely what risks are coming down the pike, right? So it's environmental risk, it's climate, it's everything that's causing the types of storms that we're seeing. And I should have made a mention of this right off the bat that our hearts go out to everybody that just got hit. Very, very hard. We actually are in those states, operating in those states, so we're a part of that. But it's really more of those types of things. It's obviously what's happening in cyber. I mean, just the attacks that you see left and right. More of that's coming, and so it's those types of things. And it's just a hard market. It's the hard market from what happened with COVID. I mean, inflation just really socked us all. And so, we're dealing with the outcome of that, but it's also the opportunity with data. People are getting really, really good with capturing data and taking advantage of really matching the risk with the rate and the terms and conditions.
Yep, no, that makes great sense. So continuing on the theme of technology, what was the impetus to found Cogitate?
Out of our own scenario, we, like everybody else, we were trying to overhaul legacy systems. And so we were quite challenged with that. And then ultimately, my business partner, co-founder, Arvind Kaushal, and I, we met at Emory University, both getting our master's degrees there. Arvind was in technology, ironically, at Delta, and I was running Insurance House. And so ultimately we connected postgraduate school and realized we needed an overhaul for our technology. And so he wanted to get into finance, but I said, you can do it, but I need your help in some, just a little bit of data right now. Right. So ironically, ultimately we decided that, hey, we probably could do this ourselves. Let's try it ourselves. It was, our cost structure at the time, it was an opportunity for us. We really didn't have a choice. And so he obviously his background was technology, and so he happily volunteered, I would say.
You inculcated him.
I did.
Another insurance one.
I did. The funny thing is we joke about this because I say to him, he said to me, I'm going to give you 5 years in this industry. I'm thinking to myself, he's going to fall in love with this industry. 16 years later, he's still here.
Yep.
So, but anyway, doing great with the company now. But at the end of the day, that was the impetus for it. And in our carrier side, we were competing with the best of the best technology, insurance technology firms in the world, Geico and Progressive.
Sure.
So we started to look at just the tools that they were using. And we knew there was a huge opportunity in commercial, in particular, specialty in E&S. So when you take that insurance technical knowledge, which that's really what we consider ourselves insurance people first, and then we bring the technology to it. And when we're going in to do a solutioning process, it's amazing how we can finish people's sentences, because we know the business.
Yeah.
And so that has been a huge differentiator for us. But at the end of the day, also, as I was mentioning a little bit earlier, we see the opportunity to help bring these solutions to the table in a sector of the industry that really needs it. So that's where the passion comes from. And then I would say, we just know a lot of folks in this industry because, like anything, relationships are the biggest part of it. Technology will never replace that.
Yeah, no, that makes good sense. Talking about technology replacing things, I cannot walk through this conference without somebody saying AI. It's it's everywhere. What's your kind of take on AI and how it's impacting what you're working on, whether it's on the MGA side or the Cogitate side, whichever side, but where's AI playing in your business?
Well, first of all, it's here.
Yeah.
It's here to stay. And, everything starts out, I think, more on the more simplistic use cases, right? On the processing side, making operations and processes more efficient. And that's where you can prove out those test cases the best. And quite frankly, that's where you have probably the least amount of regulatory impact is you're improving a process with AI. You're not making a decision on a risk with AI at this junction with respect to where everybody is now. Do I think that's coming? Absolutely.
Sure.
The tools are there, and I think that'll be generation number 2. Certainly, a ton of people here are already working on them. We're working on them.
Okay.
So ultimately, it's understanding how does an underwriter think? How does a claims person think? What does this risk look like? And so you can get all the data in the world on a risk. It's then how do you prompt those tools to be able to say, let me be that underwriter.
Right.
Again, you're never going to replace the underwriter. You're never going to replace a claims adjuster.
Sure.
But you're certainly going to facilitate their efficiency. And you might even give them some insight with respect to, how should I price this risk? How should I look at this risk? I'm seeing some exposures in this risk because these models, especially the LLM models, those are the ones that help you get such huge sets of data so quickly, decipher what you're really looking at with the human eyes and the human experience, and then making the transaction happen.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What risks are you going to be looking out for as AI starts to permeate our tech stacks?
I would say it's everything that you read about is certainly realistic. It's that these models can become biased, that these models can, maybe use the data in the way that they shouldn't use the data. Right. So we're all going to have to be, developing solutions around the solution for that. And the regulators are going to ultimately get there. They're going to force that. So they might not be able to force the technology firms to do it, but they're certainly going to force their regulated entities to do it.
Right.
And so that's going to just, transition over to the tech firms. But I do feel like that is a bit of a risk in it. I mean, there's so many exciting things about it, but those are the things that I would say a good governance program should go hand in hand with what you're doing on the AI work that you're doing.
Yeah.
No matter what it is.
It makes sense. It's interesting that you used the G word. I was actually chatting with somebody early this morning at live at ITC, a gentleman who runs an AI governance operation, and we talked about how governance needs to be used as an enabler.
For sure.
Not so much as a friction point, right? Set those guardrails up so folks know how to operate. But along those lines, and I think you've got a great perspective on this because you see the carrier side, obviously, but you're on the MGA side. MGAs are less regulated, delegated underwriting entities, and so what's your thought process on how MGAs need to be thinking about AI independent from the way carriers look at it?
Sure. I mean, if you think about it, just what is the MGA or the intermediary's role, right? They're out there to help the retailer get the risk placed. And they're out there to do it as efficiently as possible because, as a mentor of mine in the industry said, retailers don't wake up every day to do business with intermediaries. That's not their first idea. So it's really having that expertise in place and using those tools tools to make that expertise more available to them and more rapidly available to them. So, and then it's just, from a governance standpoint, that will hit the MGA sector, even though it isn't as regulated as what the carriers are. But like even the E&S carriers, freedom from rate, rule, and form is and one, it's obviously necessary. It's not even a biased position.
Right.
It's the type of risk that we take. You have to be able to be very flexible and make adjustments to those. And so I think it's as long as we're setting these models up and we're setting these tools up that doesn't create those biases, that watches for those biases, that has ultimately processes in place to capture that and monitor that, then we're going to be good. And we're going to do it anyway because the tech vendors are going to put those things in those tools.
Yeah, no, that makes good sense. We've been all the way around the horn from a couple of topical perspectives. So we talked a little bit about climate risk and kind of what we've seen over the past couple of weeks. We talked about AI and technology. We talked about a little bit about distribution. There was another topic that came up today at the opening comments in the keynote, particularly around the talent crisis in our industry. What are your thoughts, A, on the reality of that crisis, and then B, what are your companies doing to prepare for this?
Sure. It's been a race for talent for a very long time, not just for our industry, but for several industries.
Sure.
And so trying to attract and retain that talent, I know this will be a little bit of a plug for WSIA. They work very, very hard through the internship committee and some other elements of what we're doing there. But it's just awareness about this industry and awareness about what this industry is about from a career perspective, from a just a financial reward perspective, something that is common to everybody when they're entering into the business. And so I think it's just that the recruiting programs that you have around it is so funny. If you look at the way athletes are recruited, right? It used to be that colleges were the place that you'd really be watching, and then it went into the high school, junior, senior. Now it's like at the 7th, 8th grade, junior high school level. And our industry is not really different. We're not at the 7th or 8th grade level yet, but we're really into those. Now moving into sort of freshmen, sophomore, used to be junior, seniors coming into the internship programs, but we have to cast the net wider. Yeah. We're also doing that. You and I were talking a little bit off camera a little earlier about recruiting just from a diversity perspective. That's right. That talent is available to the industry, and it's there for us, and we're doing a lot of things to take advantage of that, but we're not where we could be. So it's just really putting those resources on who's the incoming. Yeah. And just the awareness of the industry, because it's like I said, it's just an awesome industry, and those people that get into it, they don't leave it. Yeah. So it's just about, for us, how we recruit, how we retain, the opportunities that you give these people when they come in the door. People are really, really smart. They're a lot smarter than we were when we were kind of getting into the industry, just because of the tools that are available to them.
Available to date.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of do-it-yourself capability with, some of the social media channels. And so it's just, you just realize that people are very, very smart. Throw them in the deep end sooner.
Yeah. I love that.
And keep them around.
Makes sense. To what extent, Jacque, are you concerned? I perceive, and I don't know if I'm alone on this, but I perceive a certain level of demonization of the insurance industry, particularly, I guess, with a lot of the weather things that are occurring.
Sure.
And I get into weekly arguments with people who trying to explain to them how insurance works, why it's there, and why it is you can't get insurance in Florida. Right. So what, do you have a similar thought? You feel like that's happening, and do you have a thought on how we combat that?
I've been in it, as we know, for a long time, and education and awareness for me is the biggest one. And our associations for our industry are really starting to get a great voice that way. The APCIA, for example, they're really, really doing a lot to educate the public. And it's one thing that we've all been a little reticent to do on the carrier side, and just in general in the industry, because we just we're cautious.
Yeah,
It's funny. We're the risk takers, but we don't like risk when it comes to communication and how we communicate. So for me, again, a big passion of mine is what's going on with social inflation.
Yeah.
So when I'm in conversations, I'm constantly educating people. Let me tell you the drivers behind why your premium went to where it went to.
Right.
Inflation's one thing from COVID, but we're out of control with nuclear verdicts. And so I think our industry has woken up to that. I think we're starting to do a much better job of communicating that, and we have to continue that.
I love that. It's so funny. Literally, I kid you not, this morning, I got a LinkedIn invitation from a public adjuster in Florida telling me that he could help me maximize my claim.
Crazy.
I still have it there, and I am resisting the urge with everything I've got to not send back the most obnoxious reply. It's fascinating where this thing has gone.
It is, and you're right. I've been so tempted myself. I get peppered with these emails too. I want to say something so bad, but you can't.
Yeah, absolutely not. So as you look into your crystal ball, Jacque, next 18 to 24 months, what's on the horizon from an innovation perspective, tech, whatever, modernization on either side? I'm so fascinated by the fact that you can talk about things from so many different perspectives. So what's your crystal ball showing you for the next couple of years? Well,
I think it's moving into phase 2 of what these models can do for us, and particularly what Gen AI can do. It's amazing now, just on the development side, how you can use Gen AI to develop faster, develop these tools faster. So I feel like we're in takeoff mode. We're definitely, the jet's ready to go. The jet's on the runway, and the jet it's ready to climb. I think it's going to happen on a grade with velocity. I think anybody who's everybody is going to be doing it. Even if you're, I think one of the funny things is that even underwriters and claims adjusters, they're getting their own Chat GPT accounts. That's a whole different ball of wax. But I think that the more those ideas come, the more people try things, just even at an individual level, we're going to see a lot more come to the table for potential solutions. So I think we're all right now in building mode and experimenting mode, and I think that's just going to continue with some velocity in the next 18 to 24 months. It's going to be, I tell people coming into the industry right now, what a cool time for you to be coming in, because you're going to see things that we didn't get to see, and you're going to see it happen much more quickly.
Agreed.
So I think that's what I see on the horizon.
I think, kind of hearkening back to the whole talent crisis thing, I think that's what's going to bode most in our favor right now, because I was talking to a good friend of mine on a prior podcast, Rob Berg, who's from Paranite, and he was saying that he believes that the fact that we are finally now catching up technology-wise with the rest of the world as an industry, that we now have something sexy to offer, right?
That's a great way to put it, for sure.
So hopefully the convergence of all of that starts to really help our cause a little bit.
It's giving me a good ad for us. All right, I like that.
Perfect.
I like it.
So we're here at ITC. We're in Vegas. 9,000 or so people roaming around. What are you looking to get out of this conference this year?
Mainly for us, we always like to see what's going on. What are the ideas? What are the tag words that we hear the most of? Will those get legs? And then obviously to see, our clientele, see our partners, and I love the networking aspect of this, because you can do it very efficiently. It might get a little tiring, but you get some great steps in. And so I think it's from those perspectives. Those are the things that we really look for.
Yeah, no, I love that. One of the things when I talk to people I mentor is that value of network.
For sure.
Before, when we were off camera, we were talking about how we all know each other and the interconnectedness, and that value of network pays dividends in so many different ways, and these are great opportunities.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Well, Jacque, this has been so much fun.
I love it.
Thank you so much for joining us here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining this episode of 5 Minutes. If you've enjoyed our discussion, we'd love for you to share it with anyone else you think might find it interesting. Also, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, and hit that bell to stay on top of the game with our practical 5-minute episodes. We look forward to seeing you again next week.